Hello, family. Happy Friday, or as we say over here, happy Friday. Yay! It is Friday, celebration time. So it's Friday, November the 21st, 2025, and the time is 1:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check in, family. Let us know where you're hailing from. I'd be so happy to see you. I'm looking for your comments. I can't see your comments for some reason, but I'm happy to have you here because I can see that at least 15 people are in the chat. I can see that from my StreamYard, but I cannot see your comment. So just 1 minute, we'll come on in just a few seconds, maybe about 10 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds. Hold on.
Shining wisdom's light, teaching soul tribe how to see through the night. Ancient scriptures and bloodlines she knows, spreading truth wherever she goes. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way to a brighter, freer day.
All right, family. Here I am. I don't have a lot of time. I am teaching. I'm back in the classroom. So, hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Yay. I saw a great question, and I'm going to answer that question about the Iraqi dinar. But first, Grand Rising. Happy Friday. Glorious rising, rich rising, golden rising, all that. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending upon where you're hailing from. Thank you all for checking in from all over the country, all over the world. Before we get started, I do want to tell you, I see some interesting questions about investment. So we talked about the Iraqi dinar yesterday on my private group. We talked about potential rates, but I don't want to do that on my main channel because these are speculations based on articles that we got straight out of Iraq. So if you're interested in joining the private group where we go into details on investments, then I put that private group link in the description section. So make sure you join, because one of the things we're going to talk about is the Iraqi dinar, and I've talked about many of the other foreign currencies in that private group, how to invest in precious metals. And I've talked about how to use precious metals like gold and even gold backs and silver and constitutional silver right now, no matter what state you're in, to buy local goods and services. So that's in a private membership group only. That's where we talk about information like that. I don't want to bore the rest of the crowd with that. And we talked about the Iraqi dinar, actually why they remove some of the zeros. And these are articles we got straight out of Iraq. And the people that's in my private group also know how to subscribe to those articles or those types of publications out of Iraq. So thank you so much for asking the questions. We'll get to that. Grand Rising, peace and blessings to you all. Also, before I get into the news, I want to tell you all that I always try to, as soon as you send a gift to me, I always try to heart it or make some type of note so you can see that I received it, because I think that's just respectful. And I also try to shout you out. So I want to thank you, Sister Deborah Allen. Thank you, Chief, for contributing to my show. Thank you, Dina Richardson. And thank you, who else? Pauline White. And thank you to my son, Dexter, and those others that have given or contributed to my Cash App. You see the Cash App there on the screen. I don't want to go into that. But today's podcast, I'm going to talk to you about how you all know we are in a recession or a depression where people are struggling to live and to survive and pay bills. My son and I talk about that all the time because, I always talk about investments, but he says, Mom, you always have to have cash on hand too, because if you have cash on hand, you'll be able to, if the bank close or they take the money that's in the bank, you'll be able to have something to survive. So we always know that you should have something in the bank to pay your bills, cash on hand. But if you have a little bit left over, family, a little bit left over or something in your budget, invest in your future. The scripture says that a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. It says that the wealth of the riches are laid up for the righteous, and a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So we're going to use wisdom, and we're going to figure out how we're going to survive today, but also how to leave some type of wealth or inheritance for our posterity, meaning our future generations. So there is a way you can do that during a depression or a recession. And we know that by looking at what happened during the Great Depression. Let me know if you all can hear me. During the Great Depression, what happened right before the Great Depression, as my son, who's an economist, always tells me, right before the Great Depression, you had the Roaring Twenties, where everybody was having parties. Remember, go look up the Roaring Twenties, kicking it, buying cars, buying stuff, investing in the stock market, just having a jolly good time. And then in the middle of the night, like this was like suddenly, if you weren't paying attention, everything crashed. Okay, so a lot of people lost money in the stock market. They lost houses, they lost real estate, they lost many of their investments. But the people who knew what to look for, even when the stock market crashed and everything collapsed right after the Roaring Twenties during the Great Depression, those people who knew how to invest their money, even if it was just a little bit of money, became wealthy even in the middle of depression. What I'm saying is today, even though we're in a depression, they're telling you this a recession, but it looks like a depression to me. Right off the heels of the global pandemic that shut down the world 5 years ago, you can, with a little money, become wealthy by buying depreciated assets. What are assets? Assets are things that you can invest in that become wealthy or become I should say, that appreciate over time. Let's see what assets definition are. I mean, I'm looking for a Webster's. An asset is a quick, no, that's not it. I don't like that word. A useful or valuable thing, something that is useful or valuable. A person, quality, that's another thing, another definition. I don't have a lot of time, so I'll give you my own definition. But first, it says an asset is something you own that adds financial value or helps you generate financial value or wealth. So an asset would be, thank you so much for the blessing. I appreciate you. God bless you. An asset could be investing in a business. It could be investing in your future, your education. Your children are an asset. What else? You guys name assets in the comment section. An asset, for all intents and purposes, for us could be land. Land is one of the greatest assets. People are assets, so yes, invest in people. That's the biggest asset, right? That's why they call it human resources. Humans or people are a resource, but land is a resource, because if you have land, you can build on the land, you can have a home on your land, you can grow food on your land, you can do businesses on your land. And while we're in the era of taxes, when you own land and you do business on the land, you pay few taxes or no taxes. And there are many videos on that about that. So land is a resource or an asset. Jewelry is an asset. Yes, precious metals, those are assets. Businesses are assets. But right now, family, the United States dollar is collapsing. It's crashing because it's lost its value due to high or a lot of money printing money that's backed by nothing. Okay, so the dollar's collapsing because of that. The dollar's collapsing also because we had that great big shutdown in 2020, where every country started saying we got to do something because the United States Incorporated is collapsing. So what those countries did through BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, they did two things. Their central bank started buying up or accumulating gold in record numbers, preparing for a dollar collapse, the United States dollar. Okay, they started buying up gold in record numbers of many, many countries, these central banks of many, many countries. And then those countries said, we're going to join Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa and stop trading with the dollar because it's losing its value. And we're going to trade with our own local currency backed by our own precious metals. Then those countries did a third thing. They started repatriating their gold and their artifacts and their resources back from the Vatican. And that's why some of you saw many planes, or you read about many planes with hundreds of thousands of tons of gold being shipped from the Vatican. And it was shipped back to those countries that had where it had been stolen. That's why when Al Sudani became a president in 2022 of November, he took to his platform and he said, there's been a lot of corruption in my country, but I tend not to do that. And so I'm going to do three things. I'm going to work with other countries to return my stolen money. And he did. If you join my private group, I'll show you exactly how he returned his stolen money. He said, I'm going to work with the Central Bank of Iraq to revalue the IQD, or my currency, the dinar, against the United States dollar, and I'm going to fight and end endemic corruption. Then Sudani came to America and he met with the White House to talk about how they can establish relationships to revalue the Iraqi dinar against the United States dollar, okay? Because the United States dollar has to collapse because it is attached to the United States Incorporated, the fake faux government that incorporated itself in 1871 in Delaware as a nonprofit religious organization. But we see that the United States Incorporated is collapsing. We know that the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine, which had before given the government unlimited powers to do whatever they wanted to do. The Supreme Court last year overturned the Chevron doctrine and called the federal government, the United States Incorporated, and the central banking system that's attached to it an unlawful treasonous organization. And that's why we had a government shutdown, because they had to downsize the government and arrest a lot of those people. So the 441 agencies, now there's 442 that call themselves a part of the government, have been downsized due to the Supreme Court overturning the Chevron doctrine. At the same time, the Supreme Court said that state-sponsored banks can operate independently from the Federal Reserve central banking system, have their own charter, their own rules, and their own ways of doing things, and issue out their own gold-backed currencies, which meant that that was a way to collapse the Federal Reserve central banking system that's attached to the United States Incorporated. So all that is being downsized and collapsing. They're bankrupt, the Federal Reserve, the United States Incorporated, and they're unlawful, treasonous, and have to all go away. This leaves the state-sponsored banks now having autonomy and sovereignty to issue out their own gold-backed currencies. If you join my private group, I'll talk about how they do that, why we're using gold-backs now, and how you can buy the gold-backs. So the system is collapsing. I only have a little time. We can go into it later a little more. So the system is collapsing. The dollar is collapsing. Countries in 2022, 85% of the global population had decided to stop trading with the United States dollar and stop getting oil from Saudi Arabia. Now it's almost all of the world, just about all of the world, because they either joined the BRICS coalition, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, or they joined the Shanghai Corporation organizations, those Asian company corporations or countries that decide to stop trading with the dollar. So the dollar is collapsing. Hold on 1 minute. So the dollar is collapsing and everything attached to it will also collapse. That means the stock market. Okay. So if you have a retirement account, you need to look for, make sure it's safe. And if you decide to keep it in there, you might consider taking a portion of that out and investing in hard assets. I said you might consider. We can talk about that later. Miles Franklin Precious Metals Company is a good company to consider, or any precious metals company if you don't want that one, or go to your local dealer. Okay. The stock market will collapse. The housing market will collapse. The automobile industry will collapse. What else is attached to the dollar? Anything that you can think of that's attached to the dollar. So you're going to have a real estate market, automobile market, stock market, and other markets will collapse as well. People on one hand will panic and say, I don't know what to do. But this is a great opportunity for those of you that know which stocks will probably hold. Those are the businesses that are hardcore, that's going to do well, that you know through research will probably remain. So I don't know which those are in the stock market, but that's left up for you to decide, because the stock market is collapsing. And right now the housing market is collapsing. Okay. You have whole neighborhoods, whole communities of people that have self-deported or have been deported by the Trump administration for whatever reason. Was it maybe some of them were involved in trafficking? Some of them were coming here taking advantage of the American people. Some of them were here unlawfully or illegally. Whatever the reason, a lot of them fled as soon as Trump came in. They self-deported or they were deported by ICE. What that did was left whole communities vacant, whole blocks of businesses, whole neighborhoods. This is a perfect time, a prime time. If you have a little money, or you can start accumulating money, or you can get together with families. You can call your children back together. You can call your family members. Your church can get together. Your private organizations, your foundations can get together and start buying up land. Because again, the way you become wealthy is buying depreciated assets. Land is depreciating. Cars are depreciating because a lot of people during the good times, or when they got them stimulus checks, or when the economy was doing better, they went and bought cars. Some of them bought cars that they couldn't afford because they had to buy a car. They had to have one. And just a couple of years ago, they made cars way more expensive than they should have done. They said something about there was a piece that was broken in the cars and they had to get it from China and it cost more. So now the car was more expensive. So you have all these people out like during a pandemic or right after pandemic buying cars because they had to get to work, or because they had, a little extra money, or it looked like a little extra money, or for whatever reason. But now they're upside down on their loan, and a lot of cars, you can look it up, are being repossessed. So this is causing and then you have people that just can't afford to make their car note. So cars are being repossessed right now. Even if you lost your car when it's being repossessed, start stacking up a little money. Get with your family members and saying, how can we start buying automobiles? Okay, because the car, I'm telling you, the prices are about to go down, family. The prices of cars are going down. We are already in the middle of an automobile collapse. Land is going to depreciate again, come down. The price of real is all going to come down. And the stock market. What else are some of the depreciating assets? Precious metals. They're appreciating now, but right now they're way lower than they should be. Many economists have said that in order to pay off the debts in America, gold has to go between $10,000 per ounce and $100,000 per ounce. And they were saying this when gold was only $800, because I've been watching it since 2017. They were saying it was like $800. Now we're at gold being over 4,000, maybe 4,100, 4,200 an ounce. So gold at 4,000 is lower than 10,000, 100,000. Silver is only $50 or $51 an ounce. When I first got into it in 2017, silver was $14. And then a couple years later, it had gone down for about one day to like $10.99 an ounce or $11 an ounce. And some people sold real quickly because they were like, oh no, I got to get out of silver. It's depreciating. I was like, no, you buy the dip. So the silver that I bought at $11 and $14 an ounce at now $50 an ounce, that's a great rate on my return on return on my rate of the rate. So silver is like $50 an ounce or $51 an ounce. Gold is like 4,100 an ounce. Copper is $2.99 an ounce. When I started looking at copper in 2017, 2018, it was 79 cents, 89 cents an ounce. Now it's $2.99. Okay. Hard assets like precious metals, they fluctuate. And right now is way lower than it should be. So why it's depreciated? You can become wealthy if you start stacking now, because it will appreciate in value. Because there's an economic principle that says as the United States dollar decreases in value, precious metals increase in value. As the USD decreases in value, precious metals increase in value. Precious metals maintain their value, they increase in value, they hold their value. The prices might look suppressed because they fluctuate because the people in power have suppressed the markets. But if you look at resignation, singular, not plural, resignation.info, you'll see bankers that's been arrested, politicians that's been arrested, world leaders that's been arrested, corporate leaders that have been arrested for suppressing the markets, trafficking children, doing all types of things. And that's in alignment with President Trump's Executive Order 13818. What is another depreciated asset? Currency. Foreign currencies that have been devalued or depreciated through war and sanctions. Okay. Why have those currencies been devalued? Because the United States incorporated, not to be confused with America, the Republic, those were a group of bloodline families that incorporated themselves in 1871. And what they do, they said, we're going to be a nonprofit religious organization with the Pope as the head. We're going to work with the British Crown, and we're going to just, do whatever we want to do. Okay. So, and as an aside to that, the United States Incorporated had an agreement with Saudi Arabia to protect the Saudi kingdom in exchange for their oil. And they said, we'll protect you. Thank you for the cash app blessing. I appreciate you. In exchange for the oil, and force all other nations to trade with Saudi Arabia getting oil using United States dollar. Well, once BRICS was formed, their bond became strong. Country after country started dropping the United States dollar, and they joined BRICS. And that was a part of a secret agreement called Project Sandman to, when triggered, stop trading with the dollar, use your own local currencies backed by precious metals. That happened. It's happened that, as far as we know, around 2022, when many nations jumped on board to join BRICS, and 85% of the global population had joined BRICS, meaning now Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, that coalition became strong. And so Vladimir Putin said, look, we got to do something to dismantle the United States Incorporated, because the real people that's supposed to be running in America, which is, the largest economy in the world, they're not in power. It's the corporation. But we got to figure out a way to destroy the corporation. So Vladimir Putin went and waged war against Ukraine, cleaned out all those underground military bases to bring Ukraine back under his auspices or under his umbrella. That ticked off Biden. Biden put sanctions on Putin. That was the trigger. He put sanctions on Putin, and Putin said, oh, you can put sanctions on me and tell me nobody can do business with me. I don't need the United States dollar for trade. I'll use my own Russian ruble. And then in 2022, the Russian ruble became the strongest performing currency in the world. He used the Russian ruble. He went to the BRICS conference, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. He said, everybody use my ruble for right now. And then you all start using your own local currencies backed by precious metals. He said, I'll help you with your military, and we're going to form an alliance against the United States Incorporated. In the meantime, here in America, the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine, dismantling the federal government and saying that they're unconstitutional, unlawful. They started attacking the courts because the judges was working with the United States Incorporated and the attorneys. And they said every judge that participated with these federal governments, they've committed treason. And any judge that worked with the United States Incorporated, they then didn't tell the president about all this nefarious activity going on, they committed misprision of treason. Then they started arresting judges and arresting attorneys, and they started arresting many people in mass. So then Vladimir Putin, remember, Project Sandman is when triggered, all countries, 209 nations, will stop trading with the dollar and trade with their own local currencies backed by precious metals. Putin was the trigger. Then he inspired all these nations, including African nations. That's when African nations start kicking out. Thank you for the cash out blessing. Like African nations started kicking out the colonists. Okay. And with Vladimir Putin and Russia's military supporting them, they start kicking them out. And that's why the European nations are collapsing, because all these African nations that were controlled by the European nations now have the power and backing of Putin's military, and they're all for joining an alliance. They repatriated their gold back from the Vatican. They started, becoming a more empowered, and they started now becoming and expressing their sovereignty. At the same time, in the United States, you had the Supreme Court overturning Chevron doctrine. You had the Supreme Court saying state-sponsored banks can now operate independently from the Federal Reserve and issue out their own gold-backed currencies. And you had state after state. We have now 46 states in America that have repealed the state sales taxes from the sales of precious metals, meaning they took away or removed sales tax from precious metals. And the reason why they did that is because they said you can't tax money. So that means they reclaim silver and gold as money. I know I'm saying a lot. So you have now 46 states that recognize gold and silver as money. They pass legislation. They use the old system to do that, passing bills, passing legislation to align with the Constitution for our republic that says in Article 1, Section 10, the only thing that can be used as money is silver and gold. So silver and gold, my friends and family members, that is lawful money. But is not only lawful money, but you're going to use silver for catalytic converters. You're going to use silver for appliances. You're going to use silver for all this advanced technology that's coming out. You're going to use silver as money. So while silver is $51 per ounce, get some. Go to your local coin dealer, ask them about it. If that's too much, look at junk silver or constitutional silver, erroneously called junk silver, which is coins minted before 1964, way before we got up the gold standard, that has 90% silver in it. Look at sterling silver, which is 92% silver. Go to the pawn shop, go to antique shops, get some junk silver. Hold on to your cell phones even when they're outdated because they have silver in them. Hold on to your computers, they have silver in it. Hold on to your old cars, your refrigerators, all your appliances. The reason why they say, oh, tote it in, bring it in, drag it in, we don't care, is because your catalytic converter has silver in it, your engine has silver in it, and palladium. Your phones, your appliances, your refrigerator, your stove, your microwave oven, your washer, your dryer, they all contain silver. So don't be so quick to junk it or throw it away if you can hold on to it. These are the assets. Silver looks like it was a depreciated asset because the people in power said they called silver junk silver. They said gold and silver are a relic, but no, it's precious metals, not just because it's been used as money, but because there were doctors that used copper. I still remember when they would tell you to put copper on your joints for your knee and your elbows and stuff to alleviate pain. We have silver and gold receptors in our brain and in our body. If you wear silver and gold and copper, then it will stave off certain energies and it will raise your energy. And some people say they have increased psychic abilities and they have better dreams. So you can drink colloidal silver and gold and copper, and you can drink monoatomic gold, silver, and all those things. So invest in depreciated assets. If gold is out of your budget because gold is almost $4,200 an ounce, get gold Arum notes. I've been screaming this for years, almost a decade. Gold Arum notes are now called gold backs. You can buy some gold backs for as cheap as like $6.22. That is a gold, that is 24 karat gold pressed onto a note. 24 karat gold pressed onto a note. Family, real gold that now states are saying you can use to buy local goods and services. I teach you how in our private group because I'm not giving that information out for everybody. If you want to know, I will tell you, but it's in the private group, line by line, how you can do that. So gold Arum notes, you're welcome. Let me see, look it up. Look up Arum, AURUM, or look up gold backs. Let's look up gold backs and see. If you look up gold backs, you'll see it at there's a organization called goldback.com. They have it. Money Metals have gold backs. AppMex, APMEX have gold backs. FloridaGoldbacks.com, government.com. They all have gold backs. Gold Arum notes, 24 karat gold. It's cheap. It's inexpensive. If you got $6 and some cent, family, you can afford it. If you don't have that, then get your family together. Here's another thing. Instead of everybody paying rent, you got 5 people in your family, you got 5 children or whatnot. Why don't you all buy one house, all live together if you can, as a family or as, group of friends, pay that mortgage off, do like Mexicans do, and then get another house and do the same thing. All I'm saying is there is a way for us to live, to survive, and to thrive in the middle of a depression. So buy you some silver and gold. Junk silver is cheap. Sterling silver is cheap. Regular silver right now is relatively cheap at $50 an ounce because, it's going to go up. Silver is going to follow gold. Copper is going to follow silver. In my membership group, I told them yesterday what my private coin dealer said, how copper will follow silver will follow gold. And right now, the gold to silver ratio is 100 to 1. 100 ounces of silver will get you 1 ounce of gold. That ratio should be cut down to 3 to 1. And some people say when the rightful place is 1 to 1. So if gold is already 4,200, that means silver is going to be right in line with that, and copper is going to be right in line with that. But right now, while it's relatively cheap, get some. Copper $2.99. Okay, let's talk back about the countries. That we take in exchange for their oil and other nations to get oil from Saudi Arabia using the USD. Well, not everybody stopped trading with the dollar. But if you didn't want to do that, then the United States would go to those countries, declare war, pay for both sides or fund both sides of the war, but declare declare war against those nations that didn't want to use the United States dollar, and that would decimate their economy, destroy their nations, bring down or depreciate their currency. So nations like Kuwait and Iraq that were thriving before the wars and before sanctions now had depreciated assets. Their currency plummeted to near zero. Okay, people who knew what was going to happen in the future bought up those currencies once they had been sanctioned through war or sanctioned through this country. America said, you didn't want to do business with us, you don't want to use the USD, we're going to put sanctions on you. Whether it was war, just telling everybody don't do business with these countries. Their assets plummeted, their GDP plummeted, their infrastructure was destroyed through war, and their currency depreciated. Well, people in the know, like people high up in the military, prelates, government officials, went and bought the currencies that had depreciated from war and sanctions and held on wait till after the sanctions were over or after the war. Then America would go back into those nations, rebuild the infrastructure, the GDP would go up, and then the value of their currency would then go back up. Then those people who bought the country's currencies that had been decimated through war and sanctions went to the bank now that the currency was reinstated back to its pre-war value. Now, so let's say before war, the Iraqi dinar was 322 above the USD. Now, during the war, now it's like 1 cent. Okay, let's just say it's 1 cent. You go and buy it. Why it was depreciated through war? You wait till after the war. America goes back into the war, back to the country.
Good afternoon, faculty, staff.
Sorry, family, I gotta go. But
announcement for all
hold on.
Florida A&M.
So we're getting ready to go, family, but buy you some currencies. In the chat, I put where you can buy currencies. I don't know if you can hear me, but what I'm saying is buy those depreciated assets. Those currencies are depreciated assets. Now I'm going to put Miles Franklin's number in case you want to buy gold and silver. Hold on. Make sure you let him know that Dr. Kia Pruitt referred you. So that's it, family. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope I've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. And for all of you that gave me a blessing, Cash App, $ Mama Kia 13. Thank you. Peace, family. Bye. Okay, so if you want to buy gold and silver, then contact Miles Franklin at 952-929-7006 or send an email to info@milesfranklin.com and let them know that Dr. Kia Pruitt referred you. And I was saying that I appreciate all of you that have sent me a Cash App blessing. You don't have to do that. Thank you so much. And let me see if there are any questions I can answer before I get out of here. I apologize. Buy some currencies if you can afford them. If if some look at the countries that have been significantly, all countries' currencies have been devalued almost anyway at some point. African nations, Asian nations, but the most well-known ones are the Iraqi dinar, the Zimbabwean zim, the Venezuelan bolivar, and I go into detail on my private channel about that, my membership group, the Vietnamese dong, and if you all could think some others, then you could put them in the chat. I also put in the chat where you can get some of those, where the online dealership you can get some of them from. You can also go to pawn shops. Sometimes you'll see currencies, or your local coin dealer will have foreign currencies. Again, because if these countries didn't want to do business with the United States dollar, we would declare war against those nations, fund both sides of the war, decimate their economy, right? Then people who knew what to do was watching for the destruction of those nations. Then the GDP would go down and their currency would be depreciated. Military high up people, bankers, all these people, these wealthy people would buy those currencies that have been devalued through sanctions or war, hold on to them, wait till after the war. Then the United States will go back into those countries, rebuild the infrastructure after they had destroyed it through war, help them rebound their economy, and then the rate of their depreciated asset or their currency will be reinstated back to its pre-war value. So then people that had bought it when it had been depreciated through war would go to the banks and say, oh, there's a new rate on it. It has been reinstated back to its pre-war value, and they would get the new rate on that. And they would become wealthy, millionaires and billionaires. I've met a couple of people one specifically that became a millionaire. And I wasn't part of that. When Kuwait's dinar, you can look up Kuwaiti dinar revalued in 1991 when it was reinstated. So now we're going to have more than a reinstatement of these world countries' currencies. Now that all countries are becoming sovereign and they now have wealth, and their central banks have accumulated gold, and they've brought back or repatriated their gold back to them and artifacts back to them. We're going to have a reinstatement, and then we're going to have a revaluation. The country's currencies will be reinstated back to its pre-war and pre-sanction value. And then you're going to have a revaluation where now you look at the country's currency is reinstated back to its pre-war value, but now you have to give an account to the gold, the silver, the copper, the rare earth minerals, all this stuff, the cobalt, the oil that these countries have that will back those countries' currencies that will now revalue, not just be reinstated to its pre-war value, but it will be revalued, it will become even more value, these countries' currencies. So when that happens, we're in the middle of a global currency reset now, where all these countries are repatriating their gold. They're talking about dropping zeros from their currency. If you follow me on my membership channel, I'll tell you what that means, and we go over it together, what that means to lop off zeros for a country's currency. They're doing trade agreements with each other, all these nations. They're brokering trade deals with President Trump, and his tariffs, putting tariffs on these countries, forced them to come to the table to do trade deals. And they were so grateful that they gave him rare earth minerals. They gave America oil and all types of things. So that's it, family. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope that said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve.
Knowledge flows, breaking chains that hold us close, teaching paths to abundance and wealth, guiding others to free themselves. So tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way to a brighter, freer day.
Bye-bye, Soul Tribe.